Well, that was a fun-filled section for everyone. Those last two ones were particularly lovely. So we're going to get into this, but you are in for an absolute treat today because we have got the revival of Radio Extreme right now. Matt, it's awesome to see you here. Would you like to explain what that little thing was there?
Are you sure?
Yeah, go for it, man.
What, explain the film or Radio Extreme?
We don't like your film.
All right, okay. So, for those that don't, me and Kev have known each other since college. So when we were like 16, we were on a media production course, and part of that course is we had to produce our own radio show, and me and him had a show called Extreme FM, which literally involved us talking movies and nonsense. Just gibberish. And karaoke as well.
Oh, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And yeah, it was good fun. Yeah.
So anyway, let's talk about your films. Would you like to let us know who you are and what film that you just showed on the short film showcase today?
My name's Mark Forrest and I directed Am Here.
I'm Matt Taylor and I directed Tealight.
So Mark, first of all I want to come to you because I read your film director statement on Film Freeway and I love how you got this film made and I love how you got yourself inspired to make it. Would you like to let people know about your 5 rules?
Yeah, basically the idea was just to somehow move from being an audience member into making a film and showing it on a screen. And so having been to a Pat Higgins talk at Hull on Sea, he was discussing about if you want to make something, then use the facilities you have at hand, rather than just trying to write something and hoping a Death Star turns up or you've got a horde of camels or a herd of camels or whatever. So I knew I had a building with 10 stories at least. I knew I had someone who was going to win the star in it and an office space. And we wrote up I drew up a series of rules which basically said I couldn't spend any money, could only use what I've got. I had to send it off to a film festival, so that way it existed objectively outside of myself. So it wasn't a way of showing it just to family members or friends who would then sort of like just obviously say it was great or whatnot. I had to send it to somebody who had to view it objectively and either pass it or fail it or let it onto their screens or not. And it just was a process of, as I said, just trying to move from the audience to here to see was it possible to do it. And so in the course of a year, I've managed to make that move.
So anyone out there who keeps on making an excuse not to make your movie, this man done it very quickly, and I'm really actually quite inspired by that story. So I might go and make a movie now. So how did you come up with the idea for your movie? I know you had your location, you had your actor, but how did you come up with the idea for your story?
Well, the actual idea comes from, there's this urban myth or legend which comes from Korea, sort of Japan, called the elevator game or the lift game, which is where you have a 10-story building and you press the lift buttons in a certain order and it's supposed to take you to another dimension or another world. Whether it does or doesn't, I've not tried it. So. But that was the general idea. So I wrote kind of almost a 15-minute script about that. But we whittled it down to sort of 4 minutes because the idea was if you make something that's 4 minutes long, it's more likely to get picked to show in a festival because it's a small amount of time that you need to fit into a festival sort of framework. So we whittled it down just to basically having one man in an office space and he sort of something occurs within the lift shaft, which we didn't film in the end. But he then sees a monster sort of approaching him and he has to deal with this monster sort of being inside the building with him. And we just basically created a monster, had the actor, filmed it and put it all together.
And Matt, second time lucky.
Yeah.
Finally got to see a film on the big screen.
Finally got to see it, yeah.
How was that?
That was, it was quite an emotional experience. Just because of how long it took the film to get where it was and where it started, and to actually finally see it on the big screen. Yeah, it was very, very, very special. So thank you so much, Romford, for that.
Wasn't me.
Well, the festival, thank you.
So tell people a little bit about where your movie came from, and it's quite personal as well, isn't it? So tell people where that came from.
Yeah, so I always knew I wanted to do that kind of claustrophobic horror, and some ideas that kind of were very prominent in my mind, and it was always to do with something about a door handle, not being able to open a door. Another one was phobias, specifically drowning, which is kind of in the film, in the bathroom scene. and also the idea that you can't escape yourself. So I was writing this when I was going through a lot of anxiety and dark times myself, and it was kind of a manifestation of that. So it was all about fear and anxieties and manifesting itself. What if you were somewhere alone by yourself and you had this to deal with? You had to battle your own inner demons, as it were. So it kind of manifested itself from that. Film's quite cathartic for me to write, so this was very cathartic in that, kind of putting my experiences and things to paper.
And tell us a little bit about your score, because the score on your show is just absolutely sensational. So tell us a little bit about how that came together.
Oh my goodness. Right. So I've been very, very lucky with the composer. An amazing composer called Marina Makarova, who's she's from Russia. She's based over in the Netherlands. And I met her randomly through a Facebook group, and she scored one of my previous films, and it was beautiful. So I knew when I wanted to do Tealight that I wanted her involved. I wanted her to do the music because she's very much in tune to the emotional beats that I kind of envision want to get across, and she's very good at picking that up. So I gave her the cut of the film, and I was like, please just do your magic, do what you like. And when she started sending material back, I was like, this is just, you're hitting every beat and the tone that I would have thought. So I gave her very little direction, which is always a good thing for me, because knowing that I've got someone I collaborate with and we're so in tune on that creative level was just amazing. And yeah, Marina's score brings the film to life, and she carries it as well, because there's not that much dialogue. And yeah, I can't praise Marina enough for the work that she did. She's a beautiful composer.
So we're going to come back for another question from me in a second, but I want to open the phone lines. But sorry, that's the radio talk. Does anybody have any questions out in the audience?
Mark, when you were making your film and it all kind of came together, was there a point that you just, like, I know it sounds silly, is there a point when you just sort of, just something like, yeah, you know, like a moment of elation at what you created? Because sometimes when you see it in your head, your delivery isn't quite how it comes out. A lot of stuff I shot when I made film came out a lot better. Did you have like a moment during the shoot where you just thought, yeah?
I think it's to do with the score as well. Because when the score was added to the final edit, which was done by a guy called Mike, and I just supplied him with the film, and he was a friend of Liam's, the actor, and he works just doing scores, and he produced the score, and it actually knitted the whole piece together, whereas previously it'd just been sound effects and just it's basically sound effects and feet walking and things like that. The whole film then came together as a piece, and I think that's when I sort of thought we've got something that we could actually successfully get into a festival here. And I think that's the point at which I thought we've made something. It may not be brilliant, but it's successful because obviously it's achieved my aim. So yeah.
And it's the start.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah.
What happens from here for you?
Yeah, it's the beginning of a journey, certainly. So how you move from where I am now to where I might be next year, that's another set of rules that I've got to come up with, and I'll do that, and I'll follow the process through again to see what happens.
Really effective use, so really impressed.
Okay.
Any other hands? I've got one. To both of you, if money was no object, which film would you make?
Oh, like what type of film?
Yeah. Any kind of fantasy. Do you have any kind of budget wasn't an issue?
Yeah, I've got a few ideas. I would want to make a fantasy, but I would also want to make quite a high budget horror as well. Speak to me later, I'll tell you some ideas.
I'd probably stick in the horror genre. I mean, most recently I saw Smile, which I thought worked really well. It's that idea of kind of folk horror rituals, the transformation process where people view something and it changes them irreparably from who they used to be before. So that's probably the route I would go down with a horror sort of film. And I've written a couple of scripts and things like that. So, yeah, I'd like to maybe take one of those and expand those ideas. That's where I'd go.
Absolutely lovely job. I found it really personal as well.
Thank you.
Very, very. I just wanted to ask you about casting and Evelyn Taylor. I think she's been in films like Outpost and things like that before.
Yeah.
But I found it. I found she was really, really good and got into the role. And I found it was like sort of like ghost story in a way, sort of thing. Was that sort of thing that you were aiming for and with the cast as well?
Yeah, most definitely. I was fortunate enough to have met Vivian on the set of Rob Burrows' film called Train Set, where she was one of the lead actors in that. So we'd always kind of kept in touch. And then when I'd written Tealight, when I was casting that, I knew I wanted someone to kind of embody vulnerability, but also that kind of hidden strength as well. And I felt Vivian had that look. And when I approached her about the project, she read the script and she was like, yeah, most definitely. And then as soon as we brought her in on the first day of filming, she just kind of embodied it. We did a lot of rehearsals over Zoom because it was just as lockdown was kind of coming to an end. So her and Nicole, who plays Nat in Australia, she was actually based in Sydney, so they were doing the scenes across Zoom from there. So those phone recordings and stuff are actually performing from the other side of the world. So it was great to have those moments over Zoom. And as soon as she started delivering these lines as Evelyn, I was like, yeah, this was just perfect casting. And there was one take that we did in the kitchen where Vivian's actually, well, Evelyn, when she's crying over the bills and the mugs and all of this kind of stuff going on. And that scene we did 4 takes of that scene. And then I was like, yeah, I think we've got it. And Vivian was like, can we just do one more? Just do one more. I was like, yeah, okay. And she came in and she delivered that performance. And that wasn't directed. I wasn't expected to be that emotional or that powerful. She didn't cry in the other takes. So when I was on the 4th take, I was like, yeah, that's kind of good. But then when she had this kind of courage to just bring in and just go that level above to kind of really raise the emotional bar for the character and in the film as well, was phenomenal. She's a fantastic actress. Yeah, after that was the first day of filming as well. I think that was scene 2 that we shot. So from there, I was just like, yeah, there's not a doubt in my mind that Vivian was destined to play Evelyn, and I hope to work with her again in the future as well.
I've got 2 questions, that's okay. The first one is, what directors influenced you in how you make films? And the second one is, I'm in the process of writing my first short film, so what advice would you have?
Just to both of us? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go first?
So what films influenced me?
What directors?
It's a tough one, really. Also, I like John Carpenter, The Thing, films like that. And you've got Dario Argento, but as a writer, I think he's very poor, but I think as a stylist, I think he's fantastic. And then you've got Stanley Kubrick, who covers all the bases, really, I think. With regards to writing scripts, I think it's more a matter that you have a fear inside yourself of actually starting and doing it. And I think it's just a matter you just need to sit down and do it and actually just take the leap of faith that you can produce something. Even if you're really writing something on spec, the actual act of sitting down, writing and producing something, creating a piece of work, means you can edit it and then make it better. If you create nothing, you can't edit it, you can't make it better, and you can't improve.
I would say for me, film director-wise, James Cameron's always been that, because Aliens is one of my favourite movies, and I just and the original Terminators as well. And he was the first director when I was a kid that I kind of figured out his style. Like, it was the first kind of director I kind of figured out how they put stuff together. So he's very special. I also love Sam Raimi. Edgar Wright. Christ, there's quite a lot. But yeah, I think they're probably like my top 3. And what was the other question? It was
advice on screenwriting.
Screenwriting. So I think just to kind of reiterate what Mark said is don't be afraid to get feedback. Don't be afraid of, to write something. I guarantee it, the first draft you write, you're probably in your mind thinking, yeah, this is great. And then you think, oh no, it's really bad. You'll go through so many stages of self-doubt. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Get feedback as well. Don't be afraid to share it with other filmmakers and, people who are around you. And get feedback. I mean, Tealight went through 13 drafts. The first draft is completely different to what the final draft was. And I got to a point where I hated the movie, absolutely hated it. And then I got to a point where I loved it. And don't be afraid to redraft, and just don't be afraid to seek advice and seek help. Like, get that feedback. So send me stuff or feedback.
So we're going to wrap that out there, but don't forget, Monday to Friday, between 2 and 4, Radio Extreme, tune in. Don't, it's up to you. And we'll end that there. Thank you for submitting.
Thank you very much.